Vlad Ethereum Classic.
Welcome back, gentlemen, to Capital Gentlemen. It's your host, Vlad Ethereum, and today we're going to get into everything related to Bitcoin, Solana, altcoin opportunities, the upcoming halving, and how I would personally use the current upcoming cycle to benefit the most by the end of the bull run in the top, and planning thoroughly in advance for taking profits, possible rotations, and ultimately, eventually, totally exiting the market, um, including taxes and after taxes reinvestment of those funds for the next bear market lows in 2026. So, if you want to get into all those things, not even if you want to, because I know you're interested because you're already watching this video, when I ask you to like and subscribe. After doing that, please go over to Vlad Ethereum Twitter, follow my personal Twitter, and then make sure to follow Capital Gentleman Twitter. Now, after doing some thinking, I just felt like it'd be adequate to cover a lot of recent things happening with some of these tokens, and just to remind you of some of the narratives that are basically already in play and are going to continue to be in play, along with some other correlating factors that you need to pay attention to in order to know when to sell. So we'll get into all that in this video, and none of this is financial advice. This is just my opinion, but that doesn't mean it is literally me telling you to do something. No, this is just my public opinion. Um, I'm not going to give away my exact allocation positions and size, but that doesn't take away from the general upside that may or may not exist with some of these tokens, and investment vehicles. But again, I am not your financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I am not licensed. Um, this is just my public opinion. But just because it's my opinion doesn't mean you take my opinion and formulate it as its law, and that these things have to happen for you, although I do believe in them. So now that we've gotten that covered, let's get into the Bitcoin halving. So we've got about let's see. So we've got about 132 days for the Bitcoin halving. And if we divide that by 7, we've got about 18 more weeks until the Bitcoin halving, just over 5 months until the Bitcoin halving. And don't get me wrong, in my opinion, the bull market has already started. But this is just extra confirmation on where we're going with Bitcoin price action. So not only next year do we have the catalyst of the ETF, we have the catalyst of the Bitcoin halving, and we use that date range trend of the 4-year cycle theory to know what next year is possibly going to look like for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoins. Not only that, taking into account what the Fed is doing, taking into account that they could potentially be lowering rates into the half of next year, more towards June, maybe March, May, if we're lucky, but ultimately lowering the interest rates, and ultimately providing another bullish catalyst for markets, not just risk on, quote unquote, risk on, like TradFi guys say. I mean, I don't really feel like it's risk on crypto, but I get where people come from when you don't have experience. So not only making just risk on markets bullish, but also making traditional markets like the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, the Russell 5,000, 3,000. I forgot. I forgot for that one. But the Russell, that as well. Um, so yeah, that's just kind of an important date to keep in mind. It's also, I say, is pretty key to take note of if you're trying to minimize your taxes when you withdraw. Not financial advice, but technically there is a deadline for those in altcoins to be getting in position and not rotating. Meaning that if you want to not get taxed at a 50% short term rate and you want to have held for a year, assuming that altcoins top out mid cycle in the bull run, which would probably be by, I say, June, probably by June in 2025, or maybe even May, April, then you want to have been locking in those capital gains long term position for the select timeline that you choose when you're going to sell. So, as for me, right, I've secured most of my positions. I've been rotating here and there, but no more rotating because I want to be in position to realize capital gains sooner with less taxes versus I'm waiting until the last second and then I'm putting myself in a weird situation where if something tops out, let's say a month before, in like the 11th month of holding, and I have to realize the gain, then that you can still get taxed at 50% versus you wait the complete 356 days, then you won't be getting taxed at 50%. Now, now that we gotten that out the way, just talking about timeline buying positions. Um, let's talk about Bonk. So Bonk right now is at 0, 0, 5 zeros and 7. Should be testing that big 10-0 range with 4 zeros anytime soon, in my opinion. Really, we just probably need another 30 to 40% rally, and that's basically a wrap. Um, but keep in mind, Bonk has been going up while Solana has been consolidating. So we all know, because Bonk is correlated with Solana, that if Solana pumps and Bonk continues to lead, then we should see, if Solana is at about $80, I think we'll be at around $700 million valuation, if not, let's say, 1 billion. So keep that in mind. If we check the order books for Bonk, if we just check the order books, so let's check and see how much 1 billion Bonk is right now. So if you had gotten 1 billion Bonk around here, it would have been about it would have been almost like 2 grand, 2 grand around there, 1.6K. And now 1 billion Bonk is $7,000. And I expect that to continue to go up. I expect that continue to go up as time goes on, as more liquidity enters the markets, in total three, and as Bonk gets carried by Bitcoin. Now, let's say you're somebody new, right, and you can only afford to put in 500 $500 worth of Bonk. Um, let's say you get about 100 million worth of Bonk. That's still tremendous upside from for to get to a target of, let's say, 10 to 25 billion. Right? Let's just do the math. 10 billion divided by 400 and, let's say, 50 million. That's still about that's still, what is that? Like a let's just do the math. 1 billion right over 450 billion. That's still a 22x. No. 10 billion 450 million. it's still a 22x. So 22 times 706, that's still $60,000. So if you believe in bonk long term, yes, it would have been cool to get in at lower prices, but sometimes you can't afford to get in, or you just didn't know at the time, et cetera, et cetera. But in my opinion, still plenty of upside. Another example, bonk at 25 billion valuation, coming from 450 million. That's still a 55x. A 55x on $700 is still. Um, Wait, hold on, I did that wrong. Hold on. Oh, my bad, my bad. The 22x would be 15,000, and to get to 25 billion, it would be 40,000. So there's still, in my opinion, plenty of upside to be had here for bonk and opportunity. Um, but if we actually check who's buying, let's go ahead and check the. Let's see the whales. We see whales coming in with massive buys and massive bids. This is a bullish sign for the market, as we're seeing key players that have access liquidity coming into the market and making their play on bonk. Whether it be long or short term, this is still bullish because of the fact of not just this access liquidity, but because we're seeing it be believed in by all sorts of players. If we go down to the Dolphins coming into bonk markets, seeing players above $1,000 come in, um, and then of course your shrimps coming in on bonk with buys less than $1,000, but that doesn't make it any less powerful than the multiplier it can achieve, no matter the amount of money you can put in. Although the result would be less, that doesn't change the fact that this is appealing to every kind of liquidity investor if you believe in bonk and the Solana ecosystem and the correlation and the narrative that goes along with it. Um, but yes, bullish for bonk markets today. Um, yes, indeed. So over the past day, we've gone up about 40% on the day. Um, I don't know if it's going to reflect that so easily here because it was already pretty high. But I say coming from Thursday at 4.004, like five zeros and four to almost five zeros and seven. It's almost a 2x, and if you've been buying lower than that, you're up quite substantially from, let's say, the 0.000018 range to 0.00002 range. Um, Even for late buyers coming in at point zero with five zeros and five or four, they're still up on returns as of right now. Of course, we can see potential retracement, but that doesn't take away the fact that a lot of these whales do believe long term, and that there's also 500,000 home holders almost on this token. There's mass consensus on how bullish this token is, on how high it may run, on the narrative, on the stance with it overtaking Sheeb and everything. And actually, if we go ahead and we check coin market cap, what we're gonna find out here is that a key move has happened with Bonk in market cap as it has proceeded to flip Floki Inu. Yes, Floki Inu has been flipped by Bonk. Um, it literally has been flipped by Bonk. If you see that $427 million market cap and you check Floki Inu, you see the market cap is only 400 million. Um, I think I think on here it might be kind of weird. Actually, I don't know where they put Bonk. It's kind of I feel like it's hard to find right now. This is weird. Um, like where's the ranking at? Where's the yeah? This is messed up. It's way higher than this. I'm gonna check. I'm going to check CoinGecko. Like yeah, I don't know what's wrong with Coin Market Cap, but it has flipped. Um, so let's go down. Floki Inu. Bonk flipped Floki Inu. Bonk rising up out of the ashes. Um, but yeah, that's I'd say that's a um, pretty important metric there, because that also means next up to flip is probably going to be the likes of Pepe. And with it only being 28 spots away from the top 100, realistically, meaning that we only have to get above, we have to basically get above 600 million in order to get to the top 100. Um, yeah, I say key key metric there. When we're talking about getting into the 100 top 100. Um, I also, goddamn, um, yeah, yeah, getting above 602 million. But after that, the next meme coin to flip would be Pepe, coming in at $660 million market cap. But moving on past that. So, some tokens that I want to bring up for narratives again would be Orca, Ray, Jupiter as your DEX token plays similar to Uni, similar to 1inch. Right, we've seen how Uniswap and 1inch performed over the recent bull run in 2021. When it comes to DEX swaps, when it came to DEX swaps on Ethereum, we saw with all that excess liquidity, token prices increased regardless of the utility, because these were the main DEX swap plays. When it comes to staking, you have your MNDE, Jito token, and if you're looking forward to Solana TVL increasing and Solana TVL increasing by stake, then this could be an okay play for 2025 bull run. AI plays, we have Render, DPen. Render is basically decentralized GPU mining, and you get paid in Render and you pay for services in Render. Um, DPen, Shadow, decentralized data exchange. Uh, Render just explained that it's kind of AI and DPen because it's physical, and Helium. And actually, Bonk has actually almost flipped Helium, which I say is a pretty bullish metric, knowing that basically this is an actual crypto that has had utility, and Bonk is just a meme token at the end of the day. So knowing that it's about to flip a key Solana project is also bullish. But moving on past that, some plays I would consider. I'd say, I mean, it's kind of weird actually. My bonk portfolio is actually more than my Solana portfolio, but my initial allocation was not. So as bonk continues to outperform Solana, I would expect bonk to head up to levels of maybe 70% or even 80% of my portfolio, depending on how high bonk goes. But that doesn't change the fact that I only took so much risk out of my portfolio initially. Um, yeah. Initially, the risk stays the same, although the gain ratio of the portfolio will be offset in time as bonk continues to outperform Solana. But as Solana continues to outperform ETH as my key safe play core position. Keyword, key safe play, in my opinion, not financial advice. Um, by key safe play, I mean, okay, this is a certain amount of of um of Solana that I'm always gonna keep, and I'm keeping that Solana in order to realize long term cap gains and take less risk on my overall portfolio while getting maximum upside by leaving that initial risk in bonk rather than continuing to DCA out profits as it goes higher, when realistically I just could be patient and not worry too much about short term. But ultimately, as long as things look long term bullish for bonk and it continues to look good with the narrative, then I don't have to worry about much, in my opinion. Now that we've looked at that, I want to take a look at the DXY on what's happening with Bitcoin. So right now, let's check Bitcoin first. Bitcoin is actually on the verge of breaking 44K. Yes, you heard it, 44K. Um, Quite the extended bullish leg up by Bitcoin, beating that 78.6 retracement level. And if we go to the monthly time frame, heading into the 61.8 retracement level at 48.6K, which would be a key area of resistance and one of the most important areas of resistance that we may be facing in the near term for Bitcoin. Um, but beyond that, everything continuing to look bullish for Bitcoin. Now, if I check the DXY, something I want to bring up is that the DXY is often inverse correlated with Bitcoin, um, in the way that if Bitcoin goes up, the DXY is going down, and if Bitcoin goes down, then the DXY is going up. So, let's start off on the 2 week time frame, and we can check this resistance. Let me adjust this. We can check on the 2 week time frame, and we can see we found support near the 50%, but not quite on the 50% retracement level. From that local low to that high, we get the Fibonacci retracement. And right now, we are bouncing short term on the 2 week time frame. Let's check some of these moving averages. See if if the bull market support band rejects, if the price rejects off bull market support band, that would indicate to me further continuation and test of these support levels. And ultimately, if they break more continuation to the downside, same thing with the 50 SMA, EMA. Same thing with the 50 EMA, although it's above it right now, short term. Hasn't tested yet the 200 week EMA, and it hasn't. Maybe it has. Let's see. Hasn't even tested to support the 200 week SMA. So let's check the 200 daily moving average. Is slightly above them, but the question is, can we close above this and hold as support? That's the question. I'll leave this there. Let's zoom in a bit. We broke down on this weekly time frame support line and we broke down, and we also failed to hold the 38.2 Fibonacci level. We failed to hold the bull market support band as support, and we failed to hold this zone of support on the breakout, which had everybody being bearish at the time, the zone from 105.4 to 104.7. And that breakout zone failed to hold as support, serving as a fake out for the bullish price action on the DXY, further indicating downside potential momentum. Now, if we zoom in a bit more on the daily time frame, we'll see that we could the fuck we'll see that we could potentially be testing the top line of this falling channel that was playing out over the course of the last few months. But key support coming in again at the 23.6, from this high to the local low on the 23.6, finding support there. But if we fail to hold this lower box range of support coming in at 102.6, then I would be expecting to eventually test the range of 101.3 to 100.6. And if that fails to hold, then we have this final area of support coming in at 99.5 and 98.9. And if that fails to hold, well, then I guess we got to draw up a Fibonacci extension to the downside and get those price levels. But basically, if you don't know what the DXY is, it's your average. It's basically the price of your average goods. It's based upon CPI, the price of your average basket of goods. But oh wait, no, maybe no. I'm getting my definitions fucked up. Am I? No. It's still a measure of a basket of goods. I just think CPI is just an inflation based metric, and this is the actual dollar valuation of. I think the same metric. If I'm not wrong, if I'm wrong, somebody let me know in the comments. But moving on past that, I mean, not too much to change with Bitcoin over the past day. It's just crazy to see how bullish we've reacted, hitting past that target of 48K with no retest. And eventually, if we continue to close at these levels, we could very well test the 48K range. And on top of that, we'll see Bitcoin dominance increasing, hitting new local highs. And with that said, I wouldn't expect altcoins to go on super parabolic rallies as it is Bitcoin season, although I would expect them to continue to recover to some extent. It's just they are not at the forefront of the price action right now. But if we see Bitcoin consolidate anytime soon, I would expect alts to rally, if as long as Bitcoin dominance comes down in some form of manner and people rotate and et cetera, et cetera. But in general, all this upside momentum has been caused by the ETF getting priced in. And some people would say, oh, the ETF is already priced in. People said that here. People said that here. People said that here. And it's like, my opinion is there is no pricing in the ETF. Retail is just front running. That's all retail is doing. Retail can't price in the ETF. They can price it in terms of how much money they throw at it, but they ultimately can't get Bitcoin at a fair valuation once it has that Bitcoin uh, index trading for, or no, fuck, whatever the fuck ETF stands for, I forgot. Um, Basically like a stock backed Bitcoin trading fund, but backed with physical Bitcoin. But my thing is retail can't price that in simply because of the fact that it's so much liquidity they don't have access to that is going to be flowing in over the course of the next 18 months. It's you're not pricing it in, you're front running. There's a difference. Pricing something in means you have the access capital to actually make the price essentially be um I guess fair valuation for what's the word? All right, so I got cut off. I was talking about the stock market, but basically looking for um, Bitcoin to accurately price in the ETF news, not because retail is front running with liquidity they don't have, but because institutional investors are changing the game on the liquidity access in Bitcoin and the actual valuation on that commodity itself. And that can't get priced in until they actually start buying, which is why it's not a sell the news event. Some people think it is, but it really isn't a sell the news event. Now, if we go to the S&P and we check what's happening recently, potentially breaking out soon to all-time highs, some people like to hate on the stock market, Bitcoin, but they don't see what has happened in the past few decades with the stock market. These 50 to 60 to 80% drawdowns, if we just, take a few measured moves over the past last decade, or what's it called? 20 years, 20 years or so. And we even go back further to the 90s, 1900s, and we see, you know, slight crashes here and there, and then periods of time where the S&P 500 went sideways and there was no real price appreciation for that entire decade, if not 20 years. Um, but even going far as back to 1928, seeing that drawdown of 85% almost. Um, People don't want to take into account these things on how um, the stock market behaves, regardless of how they believe new speculative quote unquote assets perform. Stocks aren't the safest at the end of the day. And for you to think that, like stocks are, better than Bitcoin because they're quote unquote safer, you're misinformed. You're misinformed. Stocks are manipulated based upon the QE and QT boom bust cycle. That's just a fact. And if you don't want to understand that, then you need to go back to all the price history where we've had decades of QE and we've seen the uptrend in the stock market being propped up by the Fed, and then these years of sudden inflation reduction and QT by the Fed by raising interest rates in order to get inflation under control, selling off that debt in order to keep in order to basically keep inflation down and increasing those interest rates. Fuck, I kind of damn. Did I forget how that works? But no, shit. Maybe I did. Maybe I did. No, but how do I put this? And from what I do remember, because I don't do tradfi shit all the time. It's like they'll raise the interest rates. The interest rates have to do with the rate that that they lend to banks. Banks. Um, hmm, 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 hmm. And then that also affects the bond rates. I mean, okay. Beyond the correlation between like QE bonds and interest rates, that is kind of complex when you don't think about it too much. But regardless, still QE and QT cycles facilitated by the Fed, giving us these massive uptrend bull markets in stocks and such, but ultimately controllable and manipulatable. As we've seen QT take its effect over the last year, um, with stocks dropping as far as 27%. Like, you dig? You dig? You get what I'm saying? Like, it's it's like a lot of these drawdowns are very similar, and this isn't even picking out the individual stocks. Some of these stocks literally drop down 90% against Bitcoin, um, or not even 90% against Bitcoin, 90% against USD, and Bitcoin actually performed better on the downtrend. Everything was going down. So when people would sit back and try to give an opinion on this shit like they know what the fuck they're talking about when they fucking don't, hate that shit. They try to pick out Bitcoin and and bully it and shit. But then they when it goes up and recovers, they just want to try to shit on it again because they were fucking wrong, and it's ultimately people's egos that's going to fuck them up with Bitcoin the most, because they're essentially trying to they're essentially in some form of way trying to just cope. They it makes a new all time high. They want to buy in, and then they get scared and sell off, and then they cope when it makes a higher low, and then when it makes a fucking higher low, and it actually is proceeding to lead in the next bull run. When they finally start hearing about it again, they try to shit on it, and it's just not how that works. That's just not how that works. Straight up. Um, straight up. But I mean, I think that's basically what I wanted to say for this video. Like, a lot of this stuff isn't priced in properly. I say, like, we haven't even seen a proper altcoin season yet. But even with that being the case of us not seeing that, it's eventually going to come, and we're going to see altcoins actually perform and overperform Bitcoin on a very big level. It's just not time yet because Bitcoin dominance, for me to consider us being in altcoin season again, I'm not saying altcoins can't rally, but for me to consider being in an altcoin season again, I mean, if Bitcoin dominance is really going to keep heading higher, then if we get a 60% or 65%, which is, I feel like it's very hard to get to 65%, but if we do get to 60%, then I want to see us drop back into this range of 48%, and then I would say, okay, then it's the start of altcoin season. So until we reverse this trend, which isn't probably happening anytime soon, I say, we still got a lot of time before altcoins really start to do considerable rallies, and we are, and I'd say not we, because if you're watching this, you're probably already allocated, but for those sidelined, it's only going to get worse, because at the end of the day, you missed the fucking bottom. Like, again, I'm gonna say it again. I've said this for like the last 3 videos. You missed the fucking bottom. You missed the fucking lows. You missed the bottom. Why are you trying to time for 50% extra discount above the fit of 50% above the lows when you could have bought 50% above the lows range when you could have bought? Because you're fucking greedy to the downside, and you can't actually handle the fact that that didn't work out in your favor, and you just need to fucking flip bullish because you being bearish this year has not fucking played out, in my opinion. Like, straight up, people trying to get lower prices right now don't fucking understand. This is the disbelief rally. This is the disbelief rally. Like, people that are still, in my opinion, again, bearish or waiting for good prices, they're never gonna fucking buy. The shit's gonna triple and double, and then they're gonna fucking be like, oh well, no, I can't buy it now. And then they're gonna do some sketchy shit and lose all their fucking money. Like it's kind of like with bonk, right? Like, if we go to bonk and bonk markets and everything, um, it's kind of like, example. It's like, okay, people see bonk and shit, and then they're like, okay, right? They're like, oh, it's this price, it's too high, and then bonk continues to outperform the fucking market, right? It continues to outperform Solana. They miss out on key plays like these and shit, and then they'll be up 400%, and either at that point they're too scared to buy a local top or a local mid uptrend. They get scared off for retracement, or they just, like, worst case scenario, they just fucking give up completely. Um, and you can never do that in these markets. You can never just give up. Especially if you've been through a bear market, like, you have to stay. And not financial advice, but if you're just the type of person to lose money and be like, I quit, this isn't for you. This isn't for you. But I mean, that's basically it for this video. Just kind of a quick update. DXY doing its thing. Bitcoin going to test the 48K level. Still looking at Solana to do its thing probably later. And Bitcoin consolidation. I don't think Solana in any way is on a downtrend, but I do think Solana should continue to go higher in a better case scenario in the near term. because we are in that gap range that we do need to fill right now. So that's basically it right now. It's been your host Vlad Ethereum, and this is Capital Gentlemen.